Good evening and welcome to another edition of Millennial Entrepreneurs. We're delighted you could join us tonight, and we've got a very special program and a delightful speaker. I started to say young lady, but she is, but that's not the most important thing to know about her. We'll introduce Taryn Bushrod in just a minute. She's a millennial money coach, and she's got a delightful background that we want to share with you. She's a genuine expert on many fronts. But before we do that, Mr. Johannes, NCNW's communications director, who's lived all over the world and worked for the city of Atlanta and Mayor Shirley Franklin, we're delighted to have him. He's going to give us some tips on this GoToWebinar platform to make sure you get the most out of your experience tonight.
Good evening. If you are on a computer, you will see that you have a menu to the right with an orange arrow up top. You can open and close that arrow, which gives you access to many different panels. One of the panels is the questions panel. At the end of the meeting, we will have some questions. If you would like to type your question in, please think of it as brevity, as we're going to be reading it and asking it to our presenter. Or if you also have a chance and you want to raise your hand, we will try to recognize you. Also, if you are on a laptop, a Surface, or an iPad, it is in your top right corner on your screen. Again, if you have a question, type it in, and we will have this presentation on our NCNW website within a few days under Millennial Entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Millennial Entrepreneurs. This is our monthly webinar series designed for younger folk who want to chart their own course and have their own business. It certainly is a commendable thing to do. While we're here, I want to invite you to consider joining the National Council of Negro Women. We will celebrate our 85th anniversary this year. Our 59th National Convention will be held virtually for the first time, September 24th through the 28th. We invite you to join us at ncnw.org to find out what else is going on at the National Council of Negro Women. Tonight, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker. She is a Baltimore native. She's a millennial money coach. Very impressively, she's a 2018 Forbes Fellow, a competitive enterprise where she competed to get special counseling and mentoring and coaching and learned all kinds of neat stuff from the Forbes organization. She's a graduate of Morgan State University, where she earned a BS in marketing. Not satisfied with that, she went on to earn a master's degree, and she has a behavioral finance certificate from Duke University. I never heard of behavioral finance, but I suspect we're going to learn something about it tonight. What is very interesting, though, and I think this is when you see people who are very successful in their field, they combine knowledge from a variety of sources. Not only is she thoroughly educated in the formal sense, she learned her finance habits at the knee of her father and her grandfather. There's no place like home to learn how to manage money. She was a contract specialist, and her money mindset principles are used to help people understand their relationship with money. If you never thought about the fact that you have a relationship with money, attitudes toward money, and let me give you a piece of free advice, which is worth what you're paying for it. Don't get into a committed relationship or a marriage with somebody until you find out what their relationship with money is. Without further ado, please welcome Ms. Taryn Bushrod. Taryn, welcome.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. That was an amazing intro. I feel special.
You deserve
it. Thank you. I'm super excited to be joining you all this evening. I must say that when I was an undergrad at Morgan State, I was a wide lady, but I do have a strong affinity for the women of NCNW. And I have a lot of line sisters who are members of NCNW. So, yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, so I want to make sure I share my screen appropriately. Let's see. I hit show. I tell you, Mac has so many restrictions.
There should be a button that says share, maybe in the top right-hand corner.
It is. The problem is, and I tested this out, I thought I did a good job at it.
Well, that's technology. You know, we have to be patient.
Oh,
As
this
handy as
is,
these machines are, they don't have a brain. And so
they
we have
most
to,
certainly don't. I feel so bad. Let's see. Remember me on this computer. I always do that. Connecting recordings.
while we're getting that little technical glitch straightened out, let me just say that the National Council of Negro Women mission is to lead, advocate for, and empower women of African descent, their families, and communities. We do that through a variety of programmatic activities. One of them is financial literacy, financial health, financial wellness, and economic stability. That's sort of one pot. We also work to eliminate health disparities. On July 30th, we'll present a webinar on infant and mother and child maternity and health of children, which you know that Black women are suffering disproportionately from difficult pregnancies and deliveries, and unfortunately higher rates of mortality for their children. We also work on civic engagement, which means simply go vote and understand the issues. See if I can get us.
Taryn, I have your PDF up if you need me to bring that up while you're still trying to get yours.
That would be perfect. Because when you bring it up, I can still control the skip because I am the presenter, correct?
No, you still need to bring yours up, but I don't know why yours is not activating. So I will just do this at this time.
It's just being evil. No worries. Stuff happens sometimes. There it is.
Okay. But you can't make it full screen.
Yes, it can.
Okay. Let's go for it.
Working on it.
Better than me.
There you go.
All right. So as you can see, the topic is you versus your money and learning the keys to unlock your relationship with money. So what I want to start by saying is we all have internal things. Everything in life is a learned behavior. So we have certain blockers that we've learned in our early childhood or throughout life that dictate our spending habits, which in turn really just dictates the relationship that we have with money. So I will say this, our past dictates our present, but it does not have to determine our future. You can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so Ms. Dennis did a fantastic job given some of my background. The only thing that I want to share right now is the journey to me becoming a money coach. I once was in debt. I got out of debt and I was very, very rigid about it. Some of my friends, they made fun of me. I would cut grapes in half. I had an extreme system. I tracked my money by spreadsheet, by paper and pen, by app. If I allocated $60 a week for the grocery store and I spent $57.98, even if I spent $59.98, I am capturing that 2 cent and I was rolling it over. The thing that I determined was that was boring. It was depressing. It was too restrictive. And the only thing that I wanted to do when I was done was spend money. And that's counterproductive of getting out of debt. So I had a loss of income, unfortunately, which a lot of us experience. Some of us are experiencing that during this unprecedented time and the lack of leadership that we may or may not have in the world. But I digress and I will say this. I was determined that I was not going to get out of the debt the same way that I did before. I call that the deprivation method now because it doesn't necessarily attack what's within. Even though my situation was a loss of income, I still recognize a pattern of behavior different from the principles that were instilled in me as a child, which I will get a little into on the next slide. However, my attorney challenged me. He said, there's no way that you're going to get out of debt without doing the exact same thing. And at that point, I said, I'm challenged. Challenge taken. I'm going to do this, not just to prove you wrong, but I'm a millennial. I'm single. I don't have any kids. I like what I like, which is traveling. And I still wanted to be able to live my life. So I figured out what my issue was. My issue came down to managing my money in a system that worked well for me. And I will get into what worked well for me and what has worked well for others and why I strongly recommend it. So the last little bit that you must know about me, which has a strong impact on my relationship with money, is that I love Nikes and I love a good lobster roll. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's go ahead and get right into key number one. So key number one is to identify your attitude, values, and behaviors towards money. Now I want to start with a quick poll. So if we can bring up poll number one. So poll number one, I just want to get an idea of where we are, what type of people we have joining us this evening. And I see the numbers coming in. Got a few more seconds, I believe. I love to see the numbers sway. So if you're driving and listening and you can't actually see what's happening, the question is, are you a habitual shopper, a savvy saver, or both? And yes, there is a way to be both. I won't say it's a healthy way, but there is a way to be both. Okay, I think we can close out the poll. We got almost 75%. All right, so we ended with 22% of habitual shoppers, 37% are savvy savers, and then we have 41% that are both, which is really good because the thing that we have to be mindful of is that we do not want to be impulsive buyers. And a lot of that stems deep into who we are as people. So I like to say the very first thing that you should do is think about your oldest memory of money. What are your experiences? What are some of the things that you saw? What type of food did you eat? There's so many different things if you think about if you experience or even seen family members go through evictions, having their car repossessed. On a positive end, buying new cars, buying bigger houses. one thing that I realized was just because you saw somebody doing something does not mean that they were doing it in the right way. It does not mean that they were living within their means, but that's something that we have to learn as we mature, as we grow older. So I said in the beginning, everything is a learned behavior. If you can start to think about those things, some of those experiences, you'll start to see a shift in your mindset. To give you an example, I was fortunate enough to learn about money growing up. I learned how to count at a very early age. As was mentioned in the intro, my grandfather and my father, they instilled firm money principles. My grandfather would give me money and change just to make sure I saved 5 cents of every dollar that he gave me until he got comfortable knowing that I was going to save money. Then he started giving me actual paper bills. But these things kind of helped me avoid certain situations because on my other side, my grandmother, she was a snazzy lady. She's since passed, but I tell you, I called her Jezebel, and not in the condescending manner. She would put on her fur coats just to go to the grocery store or to go down to the convenience store and play the lottery. I was spoiled by her. I had a fur coat at 5. And I'm not saying all these things to brag and boast. I'm telling you, I learned a life lesson. She had a store card for anywhere you can imagine. Hex when it was a thing, Macy's, Lord and Taylor's, Bloomingdale's, Saks, all of the high-end retailers. Neiman Marcus was our absolute favorite. And if you don't know, Neiman Marcus will cut off your credit line if you're not spending money. You got to be wary of folks that act like that. The thing that really made the difference was I had two different sides. So when I started making money, when I started managing money, if I didn't have the side of my grandfather and my father, I could have very well followed in the footsteps of my grandmother, who later on I realized she had to delay her retirement from the government because she had too many credit cards. She had over 20 credit cards. She had to pay them down so that when it came time to living off her retirement income, that wasn't a problem. But I wouldn't want to put myself in a situation, and I don't want any of you to put yourself in a situation where that becomes your reality. So we have to start to shift our mindsets around how we think about money. So it goes back again to the internal, very early ages. If somebody wants to comment some of the things that they have learned, or even if something has struck a chord with me just sharing that example, if you want to put that in the chat box, I do have the chat open and I will give a second or two. I'm a very interactive person. I know I can't touch and hold and we're not in the same room, but I do like people to be engaged. It helps me. Even I can share different tips and tricks. I see somebody raise their hand, I think. It may or may not went away. Let's see.
Taryn, I'll share an experience.
Okay.
My parents were opposites. I guess they say opposites attract. My
Mm-hmm.
mother was a saver. My father liked cameras and televisions and nice shoes and so they would sort of go back and forth. But eventually, over time, as my sister and I got older, she convinced him to start a modest but regular saving program where they saved a little bit every month. And then he could spend, one point she told me, if you bring another book in this house, you're going to have to leave. He loved to read. He was a kind of an artsy kind of guy. He was a preacher and he was a politician. He had a big personality. Everybody loved him. But she was the one who made sure the money was there for our tuition. She never had a big diamond ring. She never had a fur coat. She never got on an airplane. But when it came time for us to go to Duke and Oberlin, she wrote a check for it.
That's fantastic.
But that's about attitudes toward money. So I totally agree with what you're saying.
Yes, and I see Miss Joyce said it took her a while to curb her shopping and credit card habit. And she had a very similar story with one of her aunts. Miss Cynthia said her mother often taught her not to spend a dime over my earnings, which is key. Um, I have difference in opinion, but definitely if you want your means to be greater, that just means you have to increase your earnings. Still living within your means, don't buy something that you can't afford. But if there is something that you want and you can't plan for it, if it's if it's not within reach of saving for it, definitely have to find other means to add additional cash flow. And I think in the age we're in with the gig economy, we have a lot of options to do that. Okay, so if we can move to the next slide with key number 2. And then if we can bring up the second poll. And you may think this is a trick question, but it's not. Okay, that makes me happy to see. Okay, that makes me very happy to see that we have more people who have less debt or do not struggle with accumulating debt. But for those of us that do or did, here are some of the things that you need to think about, even in your present day moving forward. Those money cliches that we learned growing up, and that's going to be another poll, those actually have a lasting impact if we don't find a way to replace some of those things that we learned. So if we can bring up the next poll, I know I have a lot of polls. Sometimes you can group them all at once. So bear with me. I might skip one. See, this is a smart group. It's also an easy question, but it's also a smart group. And again, for those listening in, the question is money doesn't grow on, and the answer is trees. We got 100% of people who did it the right way. All right, next poll, please. Money is the root of all. Okay, so we got a split between good and evil, and that just means that we have some positive, abundant thinkers. The common money cliche is money is the root of all evil. We're taught not to idolize money or to look upon it as a saving grace, so to speak. We are taught, again, spend within your means, don't let the money go to your head. Money isn't everything. We can bring up the last poll and then I'll jump right into, I think this is very easy. Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Money doesn't buy happiness. So all of these things, all of these sayings A lot of us, we know them without even, you can say money doesn't, and you might can still finish grow on trees. These are internal blockers. You need to start to rewrite those things. I like to say, yeah, money might not grow on trees, but in certain situations, it's printed every day and it flows to me easily and abundantly. So start to look for things to replace some of those negative cliches that a lot of us have learned and have subconsciously thought about all throughout our life. Okay. So another one is, I am a money magnet. I am an excellent money manager. I say those both in tandem. There is my favorite book. It's called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. I highly recommend it. I went to a live training. It was a 2-day weekend, a millionaire mindset mastermind. And the biggest takeaway for me is, I am the person, a little different because of the current health situation, but I'm the person where I will pick up a penny. Some people pick up quarters. Oh, that's just a dime, I'm not picking it up. I pick up pennies. The thing that I learned from that seminar is that when you walk past money on the ground, you are signaling to the universe that you don't need any money. So it doesn't need to flow to you easily and abundantly because you walk by it all the time. Now, how many of you guys, tell the truth, will pick up a penny? My guess is there's not a lot of people that do it. I also walk a lot, so I think I'm in a very different situation. However, start to think about those things, because if it was a dollar, if it was a $20 bill, if it was a $100 bill, I'm pretty sure that you would pick it up. But that penny, if you use it the right way, let's just say for penny stocks, for example, that can be a life changing. That one penny could be life changing if it was invested, somehow in the right way. But again, it does signal to the universe that you don't need any more money. So I would recommend Googling money affirmations and take note of the things that stick out to you. Again, those are my two favorites. My other one is, I live and give like a billionaire. So I'm a philanthropist. I know there's a certain level of financial resources that come along with being a philanthropist. Otherwise, you are just a humanitarian. And one of my wealthy friends told me that he helped directed my path, so to speak. So, is anyone here? If you want to comment, I see some things. A penny is a cousin to a dollar. That is absolutely correct. I will give the book name again towards the end. I won't forget your question, Miss Andrea. Okay, so now that we've got those things out of the way, let's move on to key number 3, which is the most important one. You have to establish a money management system. We have to get in the habit of knowing their money. I can't tell you how many clients that will come to me, or even on the free calls that I offer, they don't even know how much money they make a month. I think I make, I'm not sure. Well, it depends. Now, the only way that I can say it depends is an acceptable answer is if you work in an industry where your income literally is dictated by your performance, let's just say sales, not taking into account your commission. Certain industries, that's acceptable. But if you are 9 to 5, if you're a government worker, if you're a banker, if you work in certain industries where without a doubt, your paycheck is the same, or it might fluctuate a few cents one week to the one pay period to the next, one paycheck to the next, but within range, you should know those numbers, because if you don't know how much you're making, there's no way you can know how much you're keeping. And these things, again, have a lasting impact on how we're able to shape our future. So the tool that works best for me and which has worked wonders for my clients is what's called the 50-30-20 rule. That's where 50% of your income goes to your living expenses. 30% is for flexible spending. These are your things that fluctuate. And then 20% goes to your financial goals, which will be your debt repayment if you had it, your savings, and investing. Now, depending upon where you live, those percentages shift. Depending upon what's important to you, those percentages shift. So if you are religious and you are a tither and you literally give your 10%, your numbers shift. If you live in a geographical location that's more expensive than others, you might spend 60% on living expenses, and it just may be unavoidable. However, creating that system, figuring out what works for you, doing the homework, learning if you are pen and paper, if you would do better tracking your money on pen and paper. If you like spreadsheets, there's only a certain type of mindset that likes spreadsheet. If you like apps, if you like the ease and the accessibility of having an app, but there's tons of them. So you still have to narrow it down and figure out what works best for you. I can tell by the type of client that I have if they say they like or dislike Mint. And that's probably one of the more familiar apps. It's been around for a very long time. I started with Mint. I didn't like it. I still don't like it, but I understand how to use it because I need to be able to fully satisfy my clients. Okay. So going back to it, knowing how much you keep, how much you save, and how much you spend. Now, tie that back into what you learned as a child. Did you see collection notices coming through the door? Did you get to see your parents or family members balance a checkbook? All of those things, everything that we've done, it shapes how we are. Now, one thing I will share is that, again, we are in control. You are here today because you want to learn something to change, which means you have a desire. You may not have known what's wrong. You may struggle with, what do we say, living paycheck to paycheck. These are all things that we can get out of. We just need to be able to understand how we got there so that we can change where we are moving forward. So at this time, I would take some questions. You can write them in the question box if you will. I also have the chat box open. No questions? I will answer the question about the book recommendation right now.
Questions are coming in now.
Okay.
What is a good practice for your money into two savings accounts? Is it a good practice to put your money into two different saving accounts?
Oh, absolutely. So there is a method called the high five banking method. And that's another way of even applying this money management system where you segment into accounts. For example, one account you may use to just pay your bills. That's it. Another account may be for that flexible spending, your groceries, which change, your gas, your entertainment, even your shopping, your dry cleaning. That's another account. Then you can have a long-term savings account. If you're looking to purchase a home or buy new furniture, or you're saving for a vacation, anything that's long term as a certain expense, that's one account. Then you can have your emergency savings account. I Depending upon what your situation is, I recommend certainly having two savings accounts. Oftentimes, people are not needing their emergency savings, but they still need to save for other things. Maybe it's a wedding. So definitely segmenting accounts is good. Now, one thing that I will add is that you want your savings accounts. I know it's very, very common. I gotta move my savings to my checking. Make sure they're in separate institutions to avoid that.
How would you suggest adjusting your 50/30/20 rule if you get paid weekly?
If you get paid weekly, it's very simple. You get paid the same amount of money. Total up how much you make in the month, because this would be monthly overall. You're totaling up exactly how much you make. You're totaling up all of your expenses, your savings. If you're investing independently, obviously, if you're contributing to your employer sponsored plan, that's something separate. I don't count that in the 20%, and neither should you, because more than likely it's coming out pre-tax before you actually get your paycheck. So again, to recap, you're totaling everything up for the month.
Can you suggest some apps? I know you mentioned Mint for tracking money.
Yes. So it's also based on personality type. And whoever that is, feel free to email me and I can give you a quick few questions and give you some detailed recommendation. My strong go-to favorite is Personal Capital. I like this. It's web-based and it's also a digital app on your phone. I like it specifically because it tells you how much you spent or saved in comparison to the same time period the previous week, the previous month. And that also helps you figure out what kind of changes did you make? What kind of changes did you experience? Or you can say, hey, I know I spent more money because I was traveling. That's acceptable. Or if you were doing the same thing that you've been doing, but you've also realized that you spent more money, then you can kind of go in and figure out where that difference maker is. I would hope that during COVID, you spent less money, especially if you were quarantined and you didn't have to go out. All of those savings, highly recommended to my clients that they keep track of them. So if you're not commuting, you should have less gas expenses. Or if you take public transit, those expenses should have been zeroed out. If you had childcare and you were no longer sending your children to childcare, you should have been able to keep track of that money as well.
How much should you have in a rainy day fund? I hear 6 months.
6 months is a standard go-to. What I will say is it depends on your monthly expenses. If you have low monthly expenses, but you only save 3 or 6 months of it, that's not going to take you as far as someone who has, it's going to sound weird, but someone who has a larger expense. I'll take the next question.
Does paying off your debt help or hurt your credit?
So, I am a money coach. I focus on relationship with money and spending habits, and that is my lane. I'm not a credit expert nor investment expert, nor am I authorized to give investment advice because I'm not a fiduciary. However, I will not say that it hurts your credit. I would say that you need to pay particular attention to the types of accounts that you're paying off and making sure that you have a balance between your installments, your revolving accounts, and that you don't have any negative inquiries or negative points, late payments, anything that you can dispute, you want to get rid of.
Do you recommend investing even though you may have money issues?
That person should email me, because money issues, we can interpret that in so many different ways. I personally, I still have debt. I'm paying off my debt, but I'm also investing. So for me, the same amount of money that I am paying off in debt is also the same amount of money that I'm also investing. And that's outside of my 401k.
As far as budgets are concerned, some people suggest breaking money down to what you spend per day. How do you feel about that?
I do not agree with that personally, but it also depends on the person and your behavior, um, how money makes sense to you. That doesn't make sense to me specifically because I don't spend the same thing every day. I know a lot of people who don't spend the same thing every day, but if you work in a place of which every day is the same work day, your weekends are the same, it might be easy for you. You might have certain vices. You might like coffee. Um, I don't know. You might order pizza, or you might eat out a lot for lunch. All of those things dictate how you actually manage your money. But I personally would not recommend to any of my clients to manage their money by day.
Is it a good practice to automate bills with a credit card and paying the credit card off twice before the due date?
It depends on the bill. It depends on the bill. I am the person. So I'll give you an example. Some people, they like credit card points. I don't know how they are adjusting their model now that traveling and life is a little different. But all of that aside, some people put everything on a credit card and just pay the credit card in full. A good habit of doing that, especially if you adapt the 50-30-20 method, which is utilizing a charge card, or my recommendation first would be to utilize a prepaid debit card. American Express has one, Navy Federal has one. There's so many options where you can actually set it up as an allotment from your paycheck. That amount is what you estimate for your flexible spending, and once it's gone, it's gone. That's a good way to keep things easy. But it sounds to me, just if I'm listening correctly, it sounds to me that this person really likes the ease of money. It sounds like if you're in a position where you can, you won't have trouble paying off your credit card bill with the same amount, same bill money, then I think you should give it a try. Anything for a month or two. And if it works out, hey, it works out.
What advice would you give a young person on how to start investing?
Again, I am not a fiduciary. I'm not a licensed CPA, CFA, any of the above. If you want to learn how to invest, I would suggest reading. I would suggest opening a brokerage account that's user friendly. There's tons. Now we're in a situation where you have commission free trades, which wasn't always the case until Robinhood, which is a pretty familiar brokerage, especially among a certain demographic. And I would say invest in things that you actually believe in, invest in things that you use. So, for instance, I said I love Nikes. Nike would be a sure bet for me to invest in because it's something that I actually use. Same with Target. I'm a Target girl, not a Walmart. So investing in Target is good, but there's a long journey of investing. But
Would you repeat the 50-30-20, please?
yes. So 50% of your income is for your living expenses, 30% is for flexible spending, or what I like to call your fund, F-U-N, fund. And then the last 20% is for your financial goals. So if you have debt, that'll be your debt payoff, your savings, and if you're investing independently.
Should I be thinking about retirement or setting funds aside now?
It depends on how old you are, but I personally feel like we should always be planning for the future, no matter how old we are. I wish my grandfather had taught me that when I was growing up and in college. I would have made some different decisions with some refund checks that I had during college.
I am in debt with student loans. Do you have any advice for me?
Oh, whew. Student loans. One, I wouldn't necessarily look at them as debt. I would look at them, I would put it in my mind that it's just a bill that I have to pay. As long as I maintain a good payment history, I'm good to go. When it comes to buying things, let's just say a house, for example, the thing that's going to be reflected upon the most when it comes to your student loans is, do you have good payment history?
I guess this is on the same lines as far as retirement. Is a 401k a great way to save?
Yes, 401k certainly, especially if your company offers a matching program. Definitely don't leave free money on the table, no matter what. Even if you can't contribute above and beyond whatever the company matches, certainly. If you are in a situation where you don't have an employer-sponsored 401k, there are other investment options that you can research, one being a individual retirement account, and there's two different types. So there's a number of different ways that you can go. But again, I don't give investment advice.
Are there some healthy money relationship skills you can point me towards so I can teach my preteen?
I would say starting out, you would want to be a good example. There are books that you can read based on different age range. So depending upon how old they are, having them manage their funds, setting up a bank account for them is also a good way to go. There's one other thing that I'm thinking of.
I'm going to jump
If
in here.
you know,
One of our, can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
Okay, one of our sponsors is Wells Fargo, and they have a hands-on banking program, which I took both of my children through. And it taught them about the difference between savings and checking and how to keep hold of their money. It was a lot easier than me trying to explain to them and get frustrated. So that's one, many banks have that same type of program, and it helps them with the methodology and the terminology.
And that's fantastic. So there's tons of resources out there, and they're becoming more accessible to us, people of color, Black people, brown people, which I'm grateful for. And depending upon the age, I found a new game. It's called Cents to Cents. So cent, like the money, CENT, to the number two, cents, things that make sense. So you can look that up as well. They have different age range of options.
What are your
That's the
thoughts?
end of the questions? Okay, there we go.
What are your thoughts about debt management programs? Do these programs help pay off your debts?
Um, that's a touchy subject. I personally would not recommend it. because it's not going to solve the problem. The problem becomes, how did you get into debt? And what behaviors did you create or not address that allows you to continue to get into debt? A lot of my clients who come to me, they are not people who want to buy a house. And this is just a sidebar of an example, because people who want to, quote unquote, get their money together, get out of debt so that they can buy a home, they're not interested in actually fixing their relationship with money. They're interested in having a patch so that they can get funding and cleared from a lender. So figuring out that direct line is more important in my perspective than actually paying off the debt, because you can utilize the service, you can get out of debt, but not know how you got into it or how you got out because someone else helped you. It doesn't necessarily help you prevent it from happening again.
And that is all the questions. What we are having pop up are thank yous. And I'm going to also say thank you to you, Taryn. This was great. And I took some notes that's going to help me. And also I'm going to pass on to my friends. Again, I have to say that NCNW has these programs for the same purpose of trying to help all of us, as Beyonce would say, upgrade one another.
That's right.
And if you are not a member of NCNW, please consider joining. If you are a member, please consider bringing your friends. And we also have the Charles L. Franklin Associates, which is the male section of NCNW. Many people doesn't know it's there, but men have been supporting this organization for years. And we're going to be doing some great things in our virtual convention coming up September 24th. And again, this is some great information. And I see you have your email address and your social media on the screen. Everybody, please take that down. Follow her, ask her questions, and I'm going to leave it to you to talk about the bonus offer.
Thank you so much. This was fantastic. I know it was high level. If it was more interactive, and I did appreciate you guys for your participation. We can get a little deeper into the weeds, but we also are on a time and want to be respectful of everyone's time. My bonus offer, if you email me or DM me the code NCNW, I will walk you through the money management plan that I set up for clients to be distributed. And I do have a special offer for everyone who joined. Even those who watch it on YouTube or the replay, the code will still remain the same. So it's a discounted offer for my money management system. It'll be $9.97 instead of $14.97. That's it.
That's fantastic. Thank you all. We will be putting this on NCNW's website, ncnw.org, within the next coming days. Usually it's in the first part of the week. And we look forward to seeing you in our next webinar, which we have next Thursday, which is on maternal and infant mortality, part of our civic engagement. And of course, we're going to have another financial webinar the following Thursday after that. I wish you all a good night.